From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
After 9/11, all the wraps came off for NSA, and they decided to, between the White House and NSA and CIA, they decided to eliminate the protection of U.S. citizens and collect on domestically.
In what's been described as a Kafkaesque decision, the Supreme Court rules a group of human rights organizations and journalists cannot challenge the government's warrantless domestic surveillance program because they can't prove they were targets of the secretive program. We'll speak with the ACLU's Jamil Jaffer, who argued the case before the Supreme Court. Then, buying access to the president. Watchdog groups are calling on President Obama to shut down a newly formed group called Organizing for Action. Give $500,000 to the group and you can meet with President Obama 4 times a year. Then, behind the brands.
For decades, the big chocolate companies have put women first in their ads. But when it comes to the women who grow their cocoa, the truth, hunger, inequality, unfair pay, it's a mess.
A new Oxfam campaign sheds light on the business practices of global food giants, including Nestle, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Kellogg. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Senate's ended the logjam over Defense Secretary appointee Chuck Hagel with a vote to confirm his nomination. On Tuesday, the Senate voted 58-41 in favor of Hagel's bid, putting to rest a bipartisan dispute that stalled one of President Obama's key cabinet picks for weeks. Democratic Senator Carl Levin of Michigan said Hagel's confirmation is long overdue.
The President needs a Secretary of Defense in whom he has trust, who will give him unvarnished advice, a person of integrity and one who has a personal understanding of the consequences of decisions relative to the use of military force. It is time to end the uncertainty relative to the leadership at the Pentagon.
4 Republicans joined Democrats in backing Hagel after dropping their filibuster attempt earlier in the day. Hagel had drawn opposition for deviating from the hawkish bipartisan consensus on foreign policy issues such as Iran, Israel, and the Iraq War. He's expected to be sworn in today, replacing outgoing Pentagon Chief Leon Panetta. Democrats and Republicans continue to trade barbs ahead of the looming sequestration deadline to avoid $85 billion in automatic spending cuts. Speaking to service members in Virginia, President Obama said Republicans are refusing easy compromise in favor of protecting the wealthy.
There are too many Republicans in Congress right now who refuse to compromise even an inch when it comes to closing tax loopholes and special interest tax breaks. And that's what's holding things up right now. Keep in mind, nobody's asking them to raise income tax rates. All we're asking is to consider closing tax loopholes and deductions that the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, said he was willing to do just a few months ago.
The spending cuts will kick in Friday unless the two sides can reach a deal. Responding to Obama in Washington, House Speaker John Boehner said Democrats are to blame for refusing to take on government spending.
The American people know the president gets more money, they're just going to spend it. And the fact is that he's gotten his tax hikes. It's time to focus on the real problem here in Washington, and that is spending. The
federal government has released hundreds of undocumented immigrants in anticipation of pending budget cuts under sequestration. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says it's released several hundred people set for deportation in order to reduce costs. The free detainees will be closely monitored while the deportation cases proceed. In a statement, the National Immigrant Justice Center said the move, quote, proves a point that immigrant rights advocates have been making for years. Those individuals who've been released will not only have the opportunity to remain with their families and have better access to legal counsel as they pursue their immigration cases, but they will do so at a great fiscal savings to the U.S. government. The Supreme Court's ruled a group of human rights organizations and journalists cannot challenge the government's warrantless domestic surveillance program because they can't prove they're among its targets. The American Civil Liberties Union and a coalition of human rights groups and journalists filed the lawsuit in 2008, hours after President Bush signed amendments granting the government almost unchecked power to monitor the international phone calls and emails of Americans. We'll speak with the man who argued the case before the Supreme Court after headlines. The Obama administration continues to stonewall Senate requests for additional Justice Department memos providing the legal rationale for the government's assassination program. The Washington Post reports the White House has continued to withhold the memos from lawmakers by citing, quote, executive privilege and attorney-client privilege. The Senate Intelligence Committee delayed its vote on John Brennan's CIA nomination earlier this month, pending more information on the drone program from the White House. Republican Senator John McCain of Arizona, meanwhile, is also threatening to hold up Brennan's confirmation vote unless the White House and Brennan respond to demands for more information on the Benghazi consulate attack in Libya, as well as on Brennan's stance on CIA torture. Hundreds of Afghans braved snowy weather on Tuesday to protest the U.S. forces that have been ordered out of Wardak province. Afghan President Hamid Karzai has banned U.S. special forces from Wardak amidst allegations of the disappearances of 9 Afghan civilians. The deputy head of Wardak's provincial council said the protests will carry on until the missing civilians are found.
These people have gathered here and want to know about 9 villagers who have disappeared. Their families are concerned about them and they are waiting for their sons to return. Until the fate of those 9 missing people are cleared, the protests will continue.
The U.S.-led NATO occupation force in Afghanistan, meanwhile, has withdrawn its claim that Taliban attacks declined last year. The force's website had posted a figure that Taliban violence fell 7% in 2012, but the number was removed after an inquiry by the Associated Press. International talks on Iran's nuclear program have concluded in Kazakhstan. No major breakthroughs occurred, but the two sides agreed to continue negotiations in Turkey next month. The EU +3, France, Germany, the United States, China, Russia, and Britain, submitted a proposal that would lift some international sanctions in return for Iran's scaling back of uranium enrichment. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton said Iran will review the offer.
The E3+3 has tabled a revised proposal, which we believe is balanced and a fair basis for constructive talks. The offer addresses international concerns on the exclusively peaceful nature of the Iranian nuclear program, but is also responsive to Iranian
ideas. Judge overseeing the trial of alleged Army whistleblower Bradley Manning has ruled his right to a speedy trial has not been violated, despite more than 1,000 days behind bars. Manning's attorneys had accused prosecutors of, quote, extreme foot-dragging, but Judge Colonel Denise Lind rejected the argument, saying prosecutors have initiated excludable delays. The ruling appears to end the last of Manning's options to have his case dismissed before a full court-martial is scheduled to begin in June. A federal appeals court has upheld a ruling blocking a Florida law requiring recipients of welfare benefits to pass a drug test. The measure bars applicants who test positive for drug use from receiving government assistance for 1 year or until they can complete a drug abuse program. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals backed a lower court decision that found the law may violate the Constitution's protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. Tuesday's ruling will also apply to a similar measure enacted in Georgia. Democratic Governor Mike Beebe of Arkansas has vetoed a measure banning abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. The bill provides exceptions only in the case of rape or incest or to save a mother's life. Arkansas lawmakers could still push through the ban, however, with a simple majority vote. 7 other states currently ban abortion at 20 weeks. Meanwhile, in Indiana, the state Senate's approved a Republican measure forcing women seeking to use the abortion pill RU-486 to first obtain an ultrasound. If enacted, the bill would make Indiana the 9th state requiring an ultrasound before terminating a pregnancy. A federal judge has once again ordered the state of Louisiana to release Albert Woodfox, a former Black Panther who spent more than 40 years in solitary confinement. Woodfox is one of the Angola Three, a group of prisoners convicted of murdering a guard at Angola prison. The Angola Three and their supporters say they were framed for their political activism. On Tuesday, the same federal judge that ordered Woodfox's release in 2008 again ruled Woodfox should be set free on the basis of racial discrimination in his retrial. It was the third time Woodfox's conviction has been overturned, but prosecutors successfully reversed the two previous victories. The state's expected to appeal once again to keep Woodfox behind bars. Rallies were held across the United States Tuesday to mark the first anniversary of the killing of the unarmed African-American teenager Trayvon Martin. On February 26, 2012, the 17-year-old high school junior was shot dead in Sanford, Florida by George Zimmerman, a self-appointed neighborhood watch volunteer who claimed he acted in self-defense. Police initially refused to arrest Zimmerman, but he was finally charged with second-degree murder after a wave of protests around the country. On Tuesday, Trayvon supporters gathered in California, Florida, and New York to honor his memory and call attention to racial profiling and discrimination. Many donned hoodies, as Trayvon had worn the night he was shot dead. Trayvon's father, Tracy Martin, addressed a crowd of hundreds in New York's Union Square.
It's a somber day for us, but also it's a day of peace for us because we know as parents that we have done all we can do to make our children's lives right.
Also speaking at the New York event was the Oscar-winning actor and singer Jamie Foxx.
What we're asking is simplicity. The simple thing is allow the court system to work. Allow a person to have their day in trial. That's the thing that baffled me the most, that someone could take someone else's life.
George Zimmerman's trial is set to begin in June, although his attorneys are seeking a further delay. He remains free on $1 million bail. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Nermeen Sheikh. Welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.
Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.